This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
I don't believe in work-life balance. For me, it's all about work-life integration. My work is my life's work. My life is my work. And I also have a full life beyond the job that I do, right? And those are really intentional things as a leader that are not easy to do.
Now, I guess where I want to start. Oh, by the way, I should just say happy 2-year anniversary, by the way, because today we're joined by the president and CEO of College Track, Shirley Collado.
Thank you.
And how's it going so far? Are you welcome to the West Coast? I mean, it's 2 years now, but are you loving it out here?
I'm loving it out here. I'm in Oakland specifically. So, Ryan, it's a bit different than where you are. I've gotten used to all of that. But I will say, I'm a Brooklyn girl and I'm an East Coaster. You can hear the New York accent. I have not gotten rid of it, even while living many years in the South, in New England, and now Cali. Oakland feels to me like my old Brooklyn, the pre-gentrified Brooklyn, the Brooklyn that had a bit more edge and flavor to it. It doesn't look like it, but it feels like it. And every time I've come to Oakland, I've always felt that years ago, before I even imagined living here, I came here and I just felt like the people here are real. There's a history here. And boy, is it, the abundance of nature and urban and culture here is just so magnificent. So I've been warmly welcomed here, thrilled to be here. And the College Track headquarters are in Oakland. We were founded in East Palo Alto. And this has been a wonderful journey thus far.
So funny. I think people are real down here too. I think it depends how you say real. Because I think when you're like, people are real, and then I think like New York real, but I'm like, no, people here they're just real. They're not trying to be LA. They're just real. Like what you see is
Great.
Just everyone's just trying to get by and get through. What I do love and like had my head nodding is my identity is very much still East Coast.
Yeah.
Even though I've lived out here for 20 years, my identity, it's like, that's coming with me here. You got sorry. And I know it's the same for you.
Well, it's traveled with me everywhere. And, there is a realness to being a New Yorker that I think is very different. I will say that, I'm very direct and, very much like very clear. And there's a certain level of politeness that's present in California in a different way than, you have it in the South or in the Midwest. And my husband, as you know, the love of my life, is from Akron, Ohio. And so, he has, as he would say, the Black industrial Midwest sensibility, a little more laid back than me. But hey, part of the journey is I moved over 3,000 miles across the country to continue my dream of equity and educational justice, building on all of the interesting places I've lived in throughout my career and life.
Well, let's go back to the top, right? Like
Yeah.
how I feel about this country. And I think our story today is a story of systems. I think it's a story of humanity. I think we have different ideas depending on where you start or your belief system on what's possible in the American dream. And I guess this is an episode of anniversaries because I believe College Track is 25 years old this year. Am I getting that right?
Yes. Yeah. We celebrated 25 years, which is incredible.
Why don't you give the audience like the 1-minute cliff notes on how College Track started, who started it, why it was started, all the things.
Sure. Well, I can't tell the story better than her, but College Track was founded by Laureen Powell Jobs in the late 90s in East Palo Alto, just a couple of miles down from Stanford, where the world was very different. It's like when I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and Sunset Park, and I used to dream about going to Hunter College, to the great city University of New York, and Hunter College is on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and I felt like it was eons away. It was just a very different place than the incredible neighborhood that I grew up in. But College Track started really when Laureen discovered that just a couple of miles from Stanford, there were seniors in high school at a local public high school that had not had any kind of standardized test prep, hadn't even taken a PSAT, had never had advanced placement courses, were lacking technology and really solid college advising. And they really were in their final year of high school with not only no plan, but no one even having seen in them so clearly the magnitude of talent and intellect and promise that these kids had. And I think that was sobering. It was jolting. It was clearly immoral on many levels. And so she started this idea and this program that then became this, incredible nonprofit that then continued to grow outside of East Palo Alto. We dared to dream to be in places like Oakland or the Bayview in San Francisco. And then eventually College Track grew nationally in SoCal, in Colorado, New Orleans, and most recently on the East Coast in Southeast DC and Prince George's County, Maryland. And I guess the biggest thing to point out, there are lots of things that people will tell you about college access. What's super distinct about this and why I get really excited about being at the helm of an organization that focuses on K-12, higher ed, and career and social mobility is one, we partner with students and their families for a decade, Ryan. We start working with kids and recruiting them in middle school. They start our program in 9th grade. They go all the way through high school, all the way through our College Thrive program and into career and life. So that long-term view and really kind of a reciprocal partnership where students and their families have agency is incredible. And we largely focus on communities, deep neighborhood partnerships. We have centers in neighborhoods like Boyle Heights and Crenshaw, like Oakland or Aurora, Colorado, or Southeast DC. We believe deeply in excellence is everywhere. Communities have incredible people, dedicated to these young people, but they're constantly underestimated. And they're constantly, to your point about systems, they're swimming in waters that were not built to completely unveil the promise that we all have as human beings and learners on this planet. So I'm super proud that, we take the long-term view. We work with these incredible students and their families and communities. And it's not just academic prep, it's life skills, it's executive functioning skills, it is leadership development, it's all of those things. And we go on a journey with them together. And a big part of what I'm doing is bringing in partners in higher ed that actually want to be part of sharing this responsibility with us. But I'll stop there because you and I are having this conversation. You want to talk about systems when higher ed is being turned inside out. And we are, I would say, at an existential moment in this country on many levels. And education happens to be one of those areas, and an area that, I've gotten up for every day because it changed my life. And I still believe in it. I still believe in it deeply.
I mean, talk about the inside of the inside out. I mean, you come from higher ed. We met. You're running the show at Ithaca College, and
Yes.
and then there was times before that, and so you've seen the inside out for a while. Take me. Well, let's talk about this statistic that I saw, by the way, because 21%, is this right? 21%, basically 1 of 5 of first generation college students finish college in 6 years. Only 1 of 5. Is that the number?
Yeah, so that number's been hovering between 21% for far too long. But yes, that's the percentage of first generation college students that complete college. And for us at College Track, the power is in the completion of the bachelor's degree, right? And while everybody's calling the value of that to question, it is a fact. We can't not see this. Social mobility and equity, right? This issue of moving the needle in your family, in your community for first generation Black, Brown, and Indigenous students in college is still the greatest lever that one can pull, right? And so when people say college isn't for everyone, well, maybe, college isn't this. Well, I ask that person, are you saying that to your child? Because the George Floyds of the world, and when we think about people in this country who are really, really vulnerable and constantly underestimated and marginalized, completing that bachelor's degree is a game changer. And I should say, completing it with low levels of debt. That's, that it's affordable and you actually complete it. But Ryan, when you look at that number and you actually factor in race, the numbers become really abysmal when you start looking and at, Black students in this country, Latinx students, Indigenous students, our Native American kids that are on reservations in communities, right? That college completion rate for the first gens gets even lower. So this is a moral, a political radical thing that we should all get behind and be very concerned about. Earning a bachelor's degree for someone like me still today remains, as I say, a radical and political act. That should not be the case, but it is.
I don't know why, but I'm pretty amazed at what Lorraine Powell Jobs has done. And if you're not paying attention, folks, pay attention on the name here. Like, how cool is it that somebody that has access is using their superpower for good?
Mhm.
And take me back. Let's just say, I don't know what you can share, what you can't share, but let's go 1,000 days ago, 3 years ago. You know, how did you land here? And and did you just, because you've been in higher ed for a while, and I do want to talk about higher ed as a whole.
Yes.
But how did this partnership, how did you meet Lorraine, and how did you go, oh my gosh, this is actually something I don't think I could say no to.
Well, I would say this. I know, when you mobilize the work at Courageous, you deeply believe in faith. And I am very grateful that most of the things that I've gotten to do in my career and what I really refer to as my life's work. I don't believe in work-life balance. For me, it's all about work-life integration. My work is my life's work. My life is my work. And I also have a full life beyond the job that I do, right? And those are really intentional things as a leader that are not easy to do when the weight of the world is at your shoulders and you have students and people and lives and communities relying on the decisions that you make. But I think it's important to note that I've worked for some extraordinary people and I've learned from incredible chancellors and presidents and founders. My early in my career, when I was wet behind the ears, I got to work and pay it forward to the Posse Foundation and ended up being the executive vice president. I went to Vanderbilt on a Greyhound bus down to Nashville, Tennessee, as a member of the very first cohort of Posse Scholars, now a national organization. And Debbie Beal, who's known me since I was 15 years old, became my boss. I got to work with, Nancy Cantor. I got to work with Dan Weiss, who was president of Lafayette College and then became president of the Met. One of my most formative leaders was Ron Leibowitz at Middlebury. I was the first woman of color to be the dean of the college at Middlebury in 250 years. And Ron, a fellow New Yorker, a fellow Brooklyn guy, recruited me away from Posse and had me lead this incredible portfolio. He's now the president of Brandeis, by the way. And all this to say that when I was leading Ithaca, my first presidency, first person of color to be leading this predominantly white institution. And I think, a fun fact about me, which I also think is a sad statistic, I'm the first Dominican American in the United States to lead a 4-year public or private college or university. There have been many firsts for me. And I'm frankly tired of it. There are lots of Shirleys and, great people in the world and talented students that do amazing things. I just happen to be on this path, right? And people notice things in me. And so when I was doing my life's work at Ithaca, during one of the most historical moments in American higher education, when Trump was in office and we then, right, were working through a global pandemic, I was doing work that I deeply cared about. And I was working, leading an institution. And from my positions, I've always done national work. I've always thought about systems. How do I activate from whether I'm the dean of the college at Middlebury, a president at Ithaca, or, running Posse? How do I actually get to navigate broadly across this entire ecosystem and mobilize change? And my name kept coming up, I think, to the College Track board. Laureen is the board chair and the co-founder of College Track. And, I got an interesting call that was inviting me into a conversation to think about whether or not I could lead or would be interested in moving to California to take college track into the next chapter. And to your point about Laureen, one of the things that's most inspiring is seeing what a philanthropist can do with not only vision, and it's not about money, it's about bringing an entire community along for the long haul, like really having that long-term dedication and support. We were just really aligned in values. I was really interested in where the organization, this incredible organization that I inherited, needed to go to a new place. And that's a really interesting leadership dilemma, right? You see something that's been around 25 years. How do you reimagine it? And that's what we've been doing the last couple of years. And I feel really inspired by the fact that I've been able to bring my experience and shake things up. And from Ithaca, and you'll see my track record well before Ithaca, I like shaking things up. I don't think leaders go to places to mobilize status quo. That's not interesting to me. And the time's too urgent.
So I can't believe you turned in 36 inches of snow and ice for California. It says, love is colorblind. And I remember putting the sock out in the world, and a select few people came back and said, no, this cannot be a colorblind thing. We need to talk about this.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to say you're both a leader and a person of color who I madly respect. But I still see you as a leader first. I'll admit, I see you as a leader first. And you said something earlier about Lorraine, and it wasn't about money. I mean, it sure helps to have money as you think about the long arc of what's necessary to be successful in this arena. And I don't know the details. I don't know the details of the business, but when you have someone at the top that's committed to good, I imagine that has to make it easier for you to go back and say, hey, Lorraine, hey, board, here's our arc over the next 3 to 5 years as a company.
I guess let me say first about the colorblind thing. I completely agree with the people who came to you.
Yeah.
I don't actually, those things are intertwined for me. If you look at what's happening now to women in higher ed, and most recently the resignation of Claudine Gay at Harvard, right, which has created this like tremendous wave of heartfelt messages from women of color, you will see just repeatedly over and over again, there is no way that you could peel away my identity in terms of race and gender from just how I identify as a leader, how I show up. And most importantly, what people put on me and what people contextualize about me. And, that was true at Ithaca. It was true in all of my roles where I was the first. And so it wasn't something that I wanted people to wash away or not see. It was very much in the fabric of who I am and what students saw in me or didn't see in me, at times. And so I named that because I think for leaders, in particular women of color, we don't ever get to check our identity at the door. And it also doesn't have to be this weight. It also brings abundance. It brings a lived experience of vision, a tapestry that's got a lot of texture to it. So I think about it the way that I think about, there's this concept of asset framing, not using a deficit model. And so when I look at my first gens and what our college track students are doing in terms of taking care of elders, having jobs, being scholar athletes, dealing with all kinds of full life issues, they're going to college with superpowers, right? And so I think my sister presidents and my sister leaders have superpowers that the world needs to see. They don't always like it, right? The world doesn't always like it. And often the world questions it, but it's a superpower. And so that's how I see it. So I never want it actually. I want you to see me fully. I think it's really important, but without minimizing it. And so, yes, I guess on the money thing, look, resources bring an abundance of choices, and that's a big deal. And when you don't have to worry about keeping the lights on, you can actually take something to the next level. I also think that it's really important that there's shared ownership. So in all of the communities that we're in and with the board, no matter what the funding source is or what the financial model is, it's so important that people see themselves as having a stake in this educational justice journey. We all should have, like, we should all be stakeholders. We should all be partners to this work. But yes, it absolutely helps to have that kind of commitment, and not just, not with a kind of a time stamp of, oh, I'm going to do this for 1 year, but to be invested over 25 years in something so remarkable is a really profound thing. And I think women in philanthropy right now really are, several of them are modeling the way that I think people with resources should really be thinking about changing the world in partnership with people who are amazing. Laureen knew when she went to East Palo Alto, the experts were in that community, the answers. If you ask people who are being impacted by the most complicated issues in our country today, we often don't ask the very people who are in it. And they have a lot of expertise, a lot of expertise. And so that's the part that I think colleges and universities, at Ithaca, I didn't want us to be a college on the hill, a private college that serves a public good. We have much to learn from the people around us that are, that we're there. And I felt that way in Newark. I felt that way in Middlebury. So that's an important part of leading change that I think is really important. Just pay attention to who you're asking, who you're looking to for the answers. These underestimated communities constantly get overlooked, and they have superpowers. They have experts. They have answers to really complicated solutions. And young people, I mean, they keep us honest and smart. I turn to the students because they always set it right for me. Always.
Let's talk about the kids. And when I think about my parenting style, and I know that's not what you mean, but I have an 11-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, and I was a summer camp counselor for years. So I've always loved that part of this, whatever that is, mentorship, parenting, creating space, right? But my style has always been like bowling, right? Like, very simply, keep the kids out of the gutter, right? Like, let's get the ball rolling down toward the pins. Let's know what the pins are, right? Don't let them jump the lane, right? But they've gotta be the ones that roll the ball, right? But like that is my job, is sort of be the guardrails and guide them down towards the pins. Although there have been times with my daughter where I joke, well, she's the ball and I'm the pins, and that game is over and thanks for playing. And my wife loves that parenting style. I'm curious with these kids, fixed beliefs are real, right?
Yeah.
If, like you said, my unspoken law rule was that's do better than the last generation. But like, I imagine, and again, I reviewed some of the materials and prepare for this conversation. It's like telling yourself you don't belong here. That's a fixed belief. Or that if you mess up once, you're done. And that brings serious fear. So talk to me about the kids and how you go about getting them to be the ball heading down towards the pins, and that it's possible.
Yes. Yeah. Well, first, creating an affirming environment in the neighborhood and community that a kid is in speaks volumes. Because what we're saying to that young person is, in order for you to get amazing things, you don't need to leave your place. There are amazing things here too. And there are people in your community who look like you, who are smart and engaging, who believe in you. And you come to this place, if you go to a college track center ever, the whole idea is you walk into this space that's supposed to feel like home. It's supposed to feel like an extension of your living room. It's a place that you not only want to like do homework in and study and meet your academic coach, but it's also a place where you want to be in conversation with other young people and you want to hang out and come on days that you don't even have to be there, right? And the executive site director and the coaches and focused on leadership and academics, they're there and they are of your community. Our staff make up a lot of the background of folks who are in these neighborhoods. So that's one. The other thing that we really do is, it's so subtle, Ryan, but words matter. They're called scholars. These are college. So it's back to the asset framing. It's like, how do you take something in a system where the ecosystem of K-12, so many bad things. People say so many bad things about the state of education, especially public education, and especially for Brown, Black, and Indigenous people living in, these terms that we use: low risk, high risk, at risk, low income, urban, inner city, this kind of thing. And what we do is we say, we're going to turn all that and shift the whole narrative. And we have a program design, a curriculum that we've developed that our students follow all the way through high school, all the way through college and career. Where essentially, think about, I want to go back to what you said earlier about when you woke up and you were a young boy, your parents are together, you got it all set. Here it is. It's a given. And what people don't understand is that in a lot of first-gen communities, a lot of immigrant communities, a lot of students who are coming from undocumented families in this country, the drive is these families totally believe in education being transformative. They work hard, they model, right, this honest, true dedication to this country and to these neighborhoods. Yet we constantly feel like these kids are getting narratives. They don't have mentors. They don't have people who care about them. There's no one there. No. They're surrounded by systems that actually are not completely realizing the promise of these. So they have to do extra things above and beyond these things that are already supposed to be set for them. So what we essentially do, very briefly, if you think about the most privileged families with legacies of education in this country, the bells and whistles that you get, the coaching, the advising, the technology, the college courses, the test prep, all of that, the career readiness, the meaningful summer experiences, internships, all these things, we essentially have socially engineered that ecosystem. And we say to students, what's your dream? And you have agency in this. This is your choice to do this. And so that's really powerful because it's not about just putting a young person on a conveyor belt. It's about giving them opportunity, choice, purpose, and power. And that's how you democratize potential in this country. And that's really what we're trying to do. So by the time they get to a college, you're seeing a kid that has dedicated 4 or 5 years of their lives to college track and to themselves and to the young people who are in their neighborhood center, and they go and then they participate in a college thrive program. So it's they're getting someone who is really thought through, who's become an educated consumer of their education, who understands choice, who understands the kinds of things that we don't tend to ask students when they don't have money or they come from a quote underrepresented groups. Those kids have dreams too. They want to fail forward too. They want to try, they want to innovate. And often I remember my own story, the stakes were always high for me. I was a completely parentified child. I raised both of my brothers. I have two amazing parents who are together now 53 years. And they work 6 days a week, double shifts. And everything that I did as a kid was super serious and intense. But I grew up feeling like there was abundance, there was love. I could do anything, right? And if you looked at my neighborhood and my community and how I grew up, you'd say, oh, she's low income, she's at risk, poor Shirley, dad drives a cab, 4th grade education. That's not how I felt. But it's because of the environment that I was around people who were deeply, deeply invested in me. And to have a college track center that affirms that kind of power is really, really exciting. And no matter how great I was or my parents were, if I was swimming in the waters that weren't built for my success, it's a very difficult thing to do. So that's really what we're trying to address.
Part of my job is to be a detective, right? Like it's like hear what's not said, right? And make sure I got it. Make sure I'm hearing. I mean, first of all, it makes complete sense why, and I'm with you, like work-life balance. This is not to knock work-life balance, right? But for me, when you wholeheartedly believe in in what you're doing. To me, it's integration, and it makes sense why there's too much to do. There's joy in doing it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit myself to doing it while I'm here. That's the first place I go. The second is like part moving from detective to, I'm a creator. I'm a creative. And so as the writer in me, and you mentioned this already, I saw the banner there was a college track banner that says opportunity, choice, power. And so I'm asking because I don't know, plus I might know. And if I can help, why wouldn't I say it? So as you think about yourself back in that growing up, fourth grade version of Shirley, eighth grade version of Shirley, but you also think about the kids, the students that are going through this. Is it opportunity, choice? Should it be opportunity, choice, belief, power? Or do they already have the belief in the system and in their community? It's until they land in an upside down world and they're trying to survive in a new system that maybe belief wanes.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So actually, when you look at our mission or tagline, if you will, it's really about democratizing potential. And in order to truly do that, you can't just give opportunity to students, right? And it's not this kind of passive one-way relationship. In that, they have to have opportunity coupled with choice, purpose, and power, right? And so what we look for, and I think this is an important thing for you to know, we don't filter kids out based on their GPAs or test scores. We don't filter kids out based on the quality of their high school. If you show up at a college track center and you're a first gen and you're in your neighborhood, what we want is will. What we want is curiosity. What we want is a student who's willing to take a leap of faith with us, be in community with us, respect self and others, invest in self and others. So when we see a student with that level of a maturity and that kind of, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it for 10 years, not 1 year. I'm going to invest in a decade. And with that comes great responsibility for myself and this community that I am choosing, and they are choosing me. That's the power that's when not every kid believes that the system's going to work for them. We don't get every kid walking in going, yeah, okay, I got this. And so we love seeing students that come in with some vulnerability, some real conversation around, I've been trying to do this and, here's what I want for myself. Sometimes the conversation's a discovery for the student. So creating space for those thoughtful interviews and dialogues, and then deciding what our cohort will be. We have hundreds of high school students at every site, and then college students all over the country. That's a really important part of what we do. So yes, you're teasing out something that I think is really important. And right, it's just like college. When you went to college, when I went to college, part of the journey is you're discovering so many aspects of yourself. And what we're asking a student is, you don't come here having it all figured out. And boy, there are all these huge systemic barriers that are totally playing against you. And we've created an environment that you need to co-create with us. And you're ultimately responsible for your destiny, but you're going to do that in community with people who really believe in you. And that's the part. And the beauty of it, I think the magic of it happens in the community that students are from. And so many prep programs, so many college things are about, you got to leave this place to be better. You got to go to a place that's totally different from your people to be better. And that's the wrong message. That's the wrong message, because when they go to college, I want colleges that are like, yes, look at these students, look at what they're bringing to make us better. Part of the process is we're looking in the mirror organizationally, because we need to evolve for this excellence, this diversity, this authentic knowledge that young people bring. And that's the part that I get super excited about.
I mean, you can see how energized you are. So let's say, no, in a good way.
Well, this is a movement for me, and it's the culmination of life's work, and I can't do it alone, which is why we need courageous leaders, right? In higher ed, in K-12, and definitely in employment, in career, where we start really rethinking What does intelligence and talent look like in this world? And there are schools, there are institutions, you mentioned higher ed earlier, that have been teaching the future of America for a very long time. And they have not had their room to shine. And so we really need to reward institutions that are truly evolving with the needs of students and understand the future of America is so different. It's going to look so radically different. So let's get ready for that right now. And the students, their communities, they have the answers. They totally have the answers.
All right, one last question, and I know I got to let you go, but like, I mean, higher ed is also going to look radically different. And the irony here is you're putting students on a track for higher ed, but is higher ed going to survive this? Or is that, is that the white guy's, reading his white guy stuff and I'm too far away? Like, what is the state of higher ed? Like, state of the union of higher ed, what are you saying?
Look, I think we're seeing a necessary moment, and obviously you can't take it out of context without looking at what's happening in our nation. More polarization, really complicated issues. The biggest issues, whether we're talking about educational justice, the climate crisis, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion, all these issues, health, it's really ultimately comes down to, if we're going to solve these super complicated social issues and problems, we need to take a multifaceted approach because they're intersected. They are together. They're codependent, right? Interdependent on each other. And so with that, you need super diverse, really interesting people who are different learners, different thinkers, have different lived experiences. As Scott Page, talks about and has demonstrated in his book, The Difference. This is really like added value to think about institutions being this way. What's at stake for us? I think that the financial model of higher ed has needed to be revisited for quite some time. And I mentioned earlier, I think that there are some institutions and systems. If you look at the great city, University of New York, if you look at the impact of the public ed system in California, right, going through it now, there's some institutions that have been so significant in social mobility, yet don't always have the resources and haven't always gotten, we now are understanding the impact of historically Black colleges and universities, right? They've been around forever, just like some of the most elite, predominantly white liberal arts colleges in this country. And so I think the future holds getting answers from the same way that I think about the college track communities, not the usual suspects. And definitely thinking about students holistically and not being afraid of technology and the impact of technology in the academy. But I still think that the future needs to hold, as we think about this idea of career readiness, social mobility, moving into jobs, that we defend the importance of being liberally educated, and that kids, especially who are first in their family to go to college, who don't have money, have the right, they should have the right to earn a liberal arts education, that it's not like this extra thing, but we have to make it relevant for them. I am worried that some of those amazing liberal arts hubs will turn into and go back to boutique operations only for people with money who are not as diverse, a more homogeneous environment. So if we can kind of blend those worlds, if we can figure out how to scale that experience and bring college closer to communities, so it's not just about going away, but there are different ways to go to college, I think that's going to be really important. And we're having these really difficult conversations right now across the country. I still believe that if we cannot be successful in communicating across lines of difference on a college campus, it is a very poor mark for the rest of this country. So that is a responsibility that we need to all hold together. Students learn, my college track scholars are learning skills and how to communicate across lines of difference that I want them to carry into college and into work. And we should embrace that. And I think many of us are still afraid of that. We don't have the skills to facilitate those things. And we need them. We need them in the classroom and outside the classroom. So But the future of higher ed, I think, is a whole other podcast, Ryan, because there's lots to unpack there. But let me be clear. I still believe deeply in higher education and the power of higher ed. I just think we need to evolve. And many of us actually have some interesting answers and ideas about this. So just creating space and not being afraid to lean into. So what's the transformation now? What do we preserve? And what do we reinvent and reimagine and then do because we need to.
All right, this is my last two-parter. Here's my last two-parter, and I know just try to. It's an unfair, but I'm going to ask for succinctness on this. So,
Yeah.
All right, let's say we bring you back on your 4-year anniversary mark. Okay, I'm bringing you back for your 4-year anniversary mark. What's the one thing you absolutely want to have accomplished? And here's the two-parter. This is an unfair question. At the 30-year mark for college track, what does success look like for college track?
Ooh, man. At the 4-year mark, I think building off of some of what we're already doing, we're building some really bold strategic partnerships with trailblazers, doing great work. NACAC, Arizona State University, Khan Academy, other people who are doing amazing things to leverage the capacity of what we want to do at college track. So I think if I'm successful and university and college partnerships that are exactly the places that I just described to you. So in my 4-year mark, if those are abundant and I have other co-conspirators, courageous leaders doing the work with me, that's super exciting. In 30 years, listen, the miracle, the game changer is probably something you wouldn't think I would say. I wish we didn't need college track.
Mm.
I wish that I didn't need to lead an organization that's trying to complement at best and replace at worst the very thing that every kid in this country has the right to have and deserve. And that is the very sad part of this work, right? And so I want to draw us into non-existence. I hope we can live in a country where we don't need an organization like this to really level the playing field.
Absurdly profound, and I like the idea. There's something there. Like,
Yeah.
I miss you. It's good to see you. It's like, I feel like I said, this is not just in your head, but like in the soul now. Keep rolling, keep going. And, if you ever need our help, you know where to find us. I'm always, to me, that might be the most courageous thing I'll say. It's like, I want to get involved, but I'm like, white guy. Like, there is part of that. True. It's true. It's true.
Oh, you totally can get involved. That's the part 2 of this conversation. And anyone listening would love for you to lean into what we're doing at College Track. And Ryan, you're doing amazing things. And we need courageous leaders. We need people who really are about heart and faith and action and are willing to learn. I'm a learning leader. I'm a servant leader. It is a privilege to be getting up every day and doing this work. And it's also hard because we shouldn't need it, right? And so I would welcome that conversation. I love what you're doing. I'm really, really honored that you invited me to be on this podcast. And it sounds like we have more things to talk about.
All
so
right, I'll come up to Oakland
happy to come back
and hang out. All right, send my best to Van. It's great to see you. And
I will. I love you and I miss you.
Miss you
And
too.
we got to keep on keeping on.
Keep rolling. Everybody, check out College Track. Ask some questions. You know where to find me. I can put you in touch with Shirley. We can all help here.
All right.
Stay courageous. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.